What's good, YouTube? In this video, I'm going to give you 6 study hacks to help you succeed in medical school. Currently, I'm nearing the end of year 2, and I've had a number of incoming students ask me for advice on how to prepare for and how to study during the basic sciences, which are years 1 and 2. So I decided to put together this list of study hacks, and I'll link each topic in the description. On this list, you'll see some strategies that I've been using all along and find extremely useful, and others that I picked up along the way and wish I had known about sooner. We're going to go in chronological order, starting from the summer before med school begins, all the way through year 2. So whether you're about to start med school or already there, I hope you find something useful in this video. Here we go. Study hack number 1 is to begin studying in the summer before med school begins. This might sound daunting, but I'll give you some direction. Learn the cranial nerves. There are only 12 of them, and you need to know them intimately. They will appear in microbiology. They will appear in pathology. You will be asked about the cranial nerves on your STEP exams. Physicians will ask you about the cranial nerves when you take clinical courses in the hospital. Now, you can learn about the cranial nerves in a number of places. I would suggest picking up a copy of BRS Anatomy, Board Review Series Anatomy, where you'll find a full chapter on cranial nerves. So learn the 12 cranial nerves and their foramen, which is where they enter and exit the skull. Learn their functions, learn what happens when you injure them. You can also find good videos on YouTube about cranial nerves. One channel I really like is Ninja Nerd. Full transparency, I did not do this myself. In the summer before I began med school, I picked up a copy of First Aid, which is incredibly dense and quite difficult to access without some basic medical school knowledge. I actually tried to memorize drugs used in the treatment of heart failure. This was not a very productive use of my time. I didn't retain anything. Had I focused on something more accessible yet still high yield, like the cranial nerves, I would have had a more productive summer before med school. Now, I've read on some internet forums that you should just chill, read a novel, watch Netflix before med school begins. But I disagree. When the semester begins, you will be inundated with a fantastic amount of information. At my school, we had a full year of histology crammed into 4 or 5 weeks' time. Plus, we also had lectures in anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry, so use your summer to get a head start. I think this first study hack is quite useful because most of us have a lot of energy and excitement going into medical school. We'd like to get a head start, but we don't know where to begin. Study hack 2 applies to first-year medical students. Pick up a copy of First Aid, now is the time, and begin using it on day 1. Use First Aid alongside all of your medical school lectures and courses. You may have heard this tip before, but in my experience, very few students actually follow through with it. When you're studying a certain topic in class, read the corresponding pages in First Aid. So if you're doing glycogen storage diseases, read glycogen storage diseases in First Aid. If you're doing respiratory physiology, do the respiratory physiology pages in First Aid. First Aid will give you dense, high-yield points that you need for Step 1. This will also help you reinforce information for your school's internal exams. The more repetitions, the better. Number 3 piggybacks on number 2. Choose a question bank and use it alongside all of your first-year courses. Do not wait. Do 5 board-style questions every day. If 5 is too easy for you, do 10. I believe there is a fairly direct correlation between how many test questions you do and how well you perform on board exams. I wouldn't get bogged down in which question bank is the best. Some popular ones are Kaplan, USMLE RX, AMBOSS, and UWorld. For year 1, I recommend Kaplan because the question stems are shorter and they mimic the NVMe quite well. I also used USMLE RX because it's built around First Aid and the questions appear as longer clinical vignettes like you'll see on Step 1. Make sure to customize your question banks so you can test yourself on topics as you cover them in class. Putting off question banks until later, when the information is not as fresh in your mind, will only slow your progress, so begin early. One note about UWorld. Some students save UWorld for their dedicated study period of 6 to 8 weeks before Step 1. I'm not sure that's necessary. Some of my classmates have been using it since year 1, and I'm planning to start UWorld 5 months before I take Step 1. So that's 2 external resources to add to your medical school curriculum. first aid, and a question bank. Use them both alongside your courses from day one. Now, moving into summer after first year. Yay, it's summer. You have work to do. You should be learning Pathoma, all of Pathoma. Listen to each lecture twice, all 19 chapters. The first time through, read along with the Pathoma textbook. The second time through, write your own notes. This is not going to be a quick process. I believe it took me 6 weeks of summer to do this, and I spent something like 3 hours a day of studying, not including break time. So it does require a good investment of your time during the summer, but it won't take all of your free time. Remember, pathology is one of the biggest courses you will take in medical school, and it's the biggest course of year 2 along with pharmacology. If you spend a few weeks of your summer learning Pathoma, you will have a huge advantage going into year 2. Here's a story. Our first pathology block exam this past September was quite brutal, and roughly 2/3 of my class failed and had to resit block 1. I passed, and not because I'm brilliant at pathology, but because I had worked through Pathoma. So when lectures came around, I was seeing disease processes for the 3rd time, while many of my classmates were seeing them for the first. You can do the same by learning Pathoma in summer. Plus, Pathoma is quite accessible. Dr. Sitar is fairly entertaining and he's easy to listen to. Study Hack 5 applies to both year 1 and 2. Listen to Sketchy, Pathoma, Golion, Osmosis, or Boards and Beyond during your downtime. Now, most of us already use some of these resources during our study time, and that's great, keep doing it. My advice is to take it a step further and also use audio lectures or video lectures during your free time, as often as you can tolerate. This means on the weekend, when you're doing laundry, when you're cooking, on your headphones at the gym, when you're driving to class in the morning, when you need a bedtime story. By continually listening to medical lectures, you will absorb information faster and retain it longer. If you retain one piece of information from each passive listening session, then that session was worth your time. I would recommend starting with an hour a day and try to increase it from there. So if you study for 4 hours in the morning, dispersed throughout the day, try to add in 1 additional hour of passive listening to medical lectures. I personally like Sketchy, Golion, and Pathoma. There are a number of good sources out there. Just choose 1 or 2 and use them consistently. It is true that we sometimes need to decompress, take a break, and just hang out. But remember, basic sciences only last 2 years, and you need to absorb a tremendous amount of information in that time. And you will be tested on this tremendous amount of information in your board exams, and your scores on those exams will largely determine what residency you get. Video games will still be there for you in 2 years. I think it's wise to dedicate as much of your free time as you can handle to passively listening to audio or video lectures. Again, just start with 1 hour a day and try to add on from there. I personally did not do this consistently until year 2, and that was a mistake. Had I started in year 1, I think I would have built a stronger foundation in microbiology and pathophys. Number 6 is more of a personal hack, and it's to create a morning ritual around studying. When I say create a morning ritual around studying, I mean figure out what gets you into the study mindset and do that every single day. You've got to figure out what works for you, whether it be exercise, meditation, walking the dog. Figure out what helps you study and do that every single day. My morning ritual goes like this. I wake up before 7 a.m. and make coffee. Then I study for 30 to 60 minutes. After that, I do a quick calisthenics workout from home. This involves various push-ups, pull-ups, or ring exercises. And handstands, which I find meditative despite not being very good at them. And sometimes I just stretch. I don't push myself to exhaustion, I'm just warming up my body to prime myself for a productive day of studying. If you're interested, I'll be posting some new videos soon so you can see exactly what exercises I do every morning. After working out for 30 to 45 minutes, I eat breakfast and then get back to studying. This is my most productive study period of the day. Endorphins are flowing from the caffeine and exercise, and my brain is ready to absorb. So that's my morning ritual. Study, workout, study. And I do it 7 days a week. If lectures begin at 8 a.m., I'll wake up at 6, study, workout, study, and I'm able to get in a full hour of studying plus a mini workout before classes begin. If lectures begin at 9 a.m., I can get 2 full hours of studying in plus a mini workout. It's very easy to wake up, check your email, your Instagram, and your Tinder, and pretty soon you've burned through a full hour or 2. Studying in the morning sets the tone for the rest of your day. So create a morning ritual that puts you in study mode and stick to it. And addendum 2.6 would be to also create an evening ritual around studying. This doesn't need to be as elaborate or as long as your morning ritual, but try to get in an additional 30, 40, or 60 minutes of study. I personally like to do Anki. You can use any flashcards. Sometimes I listen to Sketchy Micro or a Golion audio lecture. It's very easy to just go on social media in the evening and fall asleep afterwards, but I highly recommend getting in a few extra minutes of studying. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video useful. As always, let me know if you've got any questions or topics you'd like to hear more about. If you've been following the channel for a while, my Year 2 med school in Poland update is on the way, so check back in a week or 2. Best of luck with your studies.